What if the person destroying your life wasn't your enemy? What if it was you? Daniel was the kind of man who showed up. Always. When his mother got sick, he drove 4 hours every weekend without being asked. When his church needed a new roof, he donated before the announcement was finished. When his best friend Marcus came to him with a business idea, Daniel didn't hesitate. He emptied his savings account, signed his name on the lease, shook Marcus's hand and said, "We're going to build something real." For 3 years they did. The business grew. The clients trusted them. The future looked clean and bright. Daniel would come home smelling like coffee and ambition, and his wife, Nadia, would look at him from across the kitchen and smile that quiet smile, the one that said, "I'm proud of you," without a single word. Their daughter, Amara, was 6 years old and already told her teacher that her daddy owned a company. Life was full. Life was good. And then Marcus made a phone call Daniel wasn't supposed to know about. Started small. A client who suddenly went quiet. Contract that didn't renew. He told himself it was nothing. Business had slow seasons. People got busy. But then the calls stopped. Then 3 more clients disappeared. Then Daniel found the folder on Marcus's laptop, left open on the office desk. A folder labeled New Ventures. Inside emails, proposals, signed agreements with their clients. In Marcus's name only. Daniel sat down slowly. He read every single email. His hands didn't shake. His voice didn't crack. He just sat there, in the quiet of the office they built together, and felt something inside him go completely still. When Marcus walked in that evening, Daniel was standing at the window. He didn't turn around. "How long?" Marcus stopped walking. "Daniel." "How long, Marcus?" Not a question. A verdict. A long silence filled the room like smoke. 8 months. 8 months. While they were shaking hands at client dinners. While Daniel was covering Marcus's share of the rent during the slow quarter. While Nadia was asking if everything was okay and Daniel kept saying yes. 8 months. Daniel turned around. He looked at Marcus the way you look at a stranger. "Get out." "Daniel, let me explain." "Get out." The business collapsed within 60 days. The clients were gone. The lease was a liability. The savings account was empty. Daniel was 41 years old, starting from zero, with a wife, a daughter, and a rage that had no exit. Everyone told him the same thing. His mother, his pastor, his older brother Raymond. "Let it go, Daniel. Forgive and move forward. Holding on to anger only hurts you." He would nod. He would say, "I know." And then he would lie in bed at 2 a.m., replaying the moment he found that folder, over and over and over, until his chest felt like concrete, and sleep felt like surrender. Nadia would reach for his hand in the dark. He wouldn't pull away, but he wouldn't hold on either. Just still, present in body, gone everywhere else. She started leaving his coffee on the counter instead of bringing it to him. Small things, but he noticed. Daniel threw himself into rebuilding. He found a small office space, signed 2 new clients, hired a young assistant named Kevin, who worked hard and asked good questions, and reminded Daniel of himself, 10 years younger and still trusting. For a moment, it felt like momentum, like maybe the anger was fuel and not fire. Then one afternoon, Kevin made a mistake, a scheduling error, a missed follow-up call. Small, fixable.
Humans.
Daniel called him into the office and spoke to him in a voice so cold, so flat, that Kevin sat completely still, the way a person sits when they're deciding whether to cry. "If you can't handle basic tasks, I don't need you here." Kevin nodded, packed his desk the next morning, left a note that just said, "I hope things get better for you, sir." Daniel read the note, folded it once, threw it in the bin. That evening, Amara ran to him at the door the way she always did. He caught her, held her, but his eyes were somewhere else. Already back in the office, already back in that folder, already back in Marcus's face. Amara leaned back and looked at him. "Daddy." "Yes, baby. Why do you always look sad?" He laughed, the kind of laugh that covers something. "I'm not sad. I'm just tired. She studied his face for a moment, the way children do when they know adults are lying, but don't have the words for it yet. Then she climbed down and went back to her drawings. He stood in the hallway alone. For a long time after that. 3 months later, Daniel heard through a mutual contact that Marcus had launched a new company, different industries, new city, and it was doing well. Something turned over in Daniel's stomach. He opened Marcus's LinkedIn page. New headshot, new bio, new logo. 250 connections had liked his launch post. The comments said things like, "So proud of you. You've always been a builder. Can't wait to see where this goes." Daniel closed his laptop, opened it again, closed it. He called Raymond that night. "He's out there thriving, Ray." Like nothing happened. Raymond was quiet for a moment. "And what are you doing?" "What?" Asterisk. "While he's out there thriving. What are you doing, Daniel?" Asterisk. Daniel didn't answer. The silence between them stretched long and uncomfortable. "I'm rebuilding," Daniel finally said. "No," Raymond said. Asterisk. "You're watching him. There's a difference." Asterisk. Daniel hung up, sat in the dark, told himself Raymond didn't understand, told himself nobody understood, poured 2 fingers of whiskey he didn't finish, went to bed without saying goodnight to Nadia. She didn't call after him. That was new.
Like and subscribe to our channel. Someone needs to hear this.
The next morning, Nadia was already dressed when Daniel came downstairs, coat on.
Bag over her shoulder.
She didn't look up from her phone. "There's food in the fridge." That was it. No keys, no eye contact, just information. Daniel stood in the kitchen doorway, watching her leave, and couldn't find a single word to say. The door closed. The house went quiet. Amara was still asleep upstairs. He stood there alone, in a home that still had his name on the mortgage, and felt like a guest in it. He told himself she was just tired. He told himself things would settle. He told himself a lot of things that year that turned out not to be true. The second client left in February. No drama, no argument, just a short email that said they were going in a different direction. Daniel read it standing in the parking lot of a grocery store and didn't move for almost 10 minutes. A woman walked past him with a trolley and glanced at his face, and then quickly looked away. He drove home, sat in the car outside his own house, couldn't explain why he didn't go inside. The third client called personally, a man named George, who had been kind to Daniel for years. Asterisk. "Daniel, I have to be honest with you. The last 2 meetings you weren't present. We need someone who's in the room."
I'm sorry.
Asterisk. Daniel thanked him, said he understood, ended the call, then sat completely still and stared at nothing for a very long time. The chest pains started that Thursday. He ignored them the first day, called them stress, called them posture. By Saturday night, they were loud enough that Nadia drove him to the emergency room without either of them speaking in the car. The doctor used words like inflammation and chronic stress indicators. He gave Daniel a pamphlet, told him to rest, told him to reduce anxiety, told him the body keeps score, even when the mind refuses to. Nadia sat in the plastic chair beside his hospital bed. She didn't hold his hand. She did not hold it either. She just sat there, close enough to be a wife, far enough to be a warning. On the drive home, she spoke, soft, careful, like she'd been rehearsing. Asterisk. "Daniel, I need you to hear me. I'm not leaving tonight, but I need you to understand. I can't keep living with someone who isn't here." Asterisk. He kept his eyes on the road. "I'm here." Asterisk. "You're in the car. You're not here." Asterisk. He didn't argue. He didn't know how. She gave him 60 days. Not as an ultimatum. She wasn't that kind of woman. She gave it as a truth. Asterisk. "Something has to change in 60 days. Not for me. For you." Asterisk. He spent the first 30 of those days the same way he'd spent the last 14 months, rehearsing conversations with Marcus. That would never happen. Imagining the moment Marcus's company would fail. checking his LinkedIn every few days, like a wound he couldn't stop touching. Then one evening Amara came to him with a school assignment. Asterisk, Daddy, I have to write about someone I admire. Can I write about you? Asterisk. He looked at her, 7 years old, crayon in her hand, waiting. What would you write? He asked. She thought for a moment, the serious thinking face she'd had since she was 3. I would write that you used to smile more. Used to. That sentence didn't land like a sentence. It landed like a door swinging open in a dark room. Used to. His 7-year-old daughter was writing her father in the past tense. He excused himself, went to the bathroom, closed the door, sat on the edge of the tub, and pressed his hands over his face, and breathed, slow, jagged, the kind of breathing that happens just before or just after a man breaks open. He didn't cry. He wanted to, but something had been locked so long. He didn't know how to open anymore. He sat there for 11 minutes. He counted, because counting was the only thing that felt like control. He thought about Marcus, really thought about him, not the enemy version, not the villain he'd been rehearsing for 14 months. Just Marcus, the man who used to call him every Sunday, who was at the hospital when Amara was born, who made a terrible, selfish, unforgivable decision, and had apparently moved on completely, while Daniel had not moved 1 single inch. That was when it hit him. Not gently, not like a revelation in a movie, with soft music and golden light. It hit him the way truth usually hits. Blunt, unwelcome, impossible to unknow. Marcus wasn't thinking about him. Marcus hadn't been thinking about him. For a long time, the only person still trapped in that office, still staring at that open folder, still frozen in that exact moment of betrayal, was Daniel. He had handed Marcus a weapon, and then held it against his own chest for 14 months, and called it loyalty. He came out of the bathroom. Amara was still at the table, drawing. He sat down beside her. Tell me what else you'd write. She looked up, surprised. Then she smiled, and it was Nadia's smile, the quiet one that means everything, and she started talking. He listened, really listened. For the first time in a very long time, he was actually in the room. That night, after Amara was asleep, Daniel sat at the kitchen table, with a pen and a blank piece of paper. Nadia watched him from the doorway, didn't speak, didn't leave. He wrote for 40 minutes. Not to Marcus, not an apology, not an accusation. He wrote to himself. Everything he'd lost, everything he'd chosen to lose, every moment he'd been standing at a window, when he should have been at the table. He didn't read it back. He folded it, set it down. Nadia came and sat across from him. They didn't speak for a while. Then she said, "How do you feel?" He thought about it honestly. Asterisk, like I just put something down that I didn't realize I was carrying. Asterisk. She reached across the table, took his hand. He held on this time. The road back wasn't clean. The clients didn't return overnight. The trust between him and Nadia was rebuilt slowly, carefully, the way you repair something precious, one honest conversation at a time. Some mornings the anger still surfaced. He'd feel it rising, and he'd recognize it now, not as strength, but as an old habit that nearly cost him everything. He never contacted Marcus. Forgiveness wasn't a phone call. It wasn't a meeting or a handshake. It was a decision he made quietly, alone, at a kitchen table, to stop letting a man who had moved on continue to run his life. Months later, Amara came home with her school assignment. She got full marks. She'd written about her father, not the man he used to be, the man he was becoming. He kept that paper, folded it, put it in his wallet, because some things you carry on purpose.
Like and subscribe to our channel. Someone needs to hear this.